Hi, lovebugs. Welcome to another episode of Girls Night. I am your host, Carly Dockstader. And this week I heard a new term, which is quiet cracking. I'm not sure if y'all have heard it. I think it's kind of a trendy term right now when it comes to corporations and work and our jobs. So I went ahead, I did the research for you. So we are going to be talking all about what quiet cracking actually is, how it's related to burnout, and what you can do to avoid getting to the point where you are quiet cracking and how to get out of that if you are already there. So let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Life can get a little crazy, so let's talk about it. If you're ready to dive deeper, talk about what really matters, and feel a little more empowered, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Carly Dockstader. I'm a life coach, baker, dog mom of two, and you're always there for you, gal pal. And I'm so excited to have you join me. So grab your fuzzy socks, put on your comfy pants, and let's have girls' night. Okay, so first of all, quiet cracking, when I first heard that term, my brain immediately went to slowly going insane. To me, that's what it sounds like. The slow progression towards insanity or feeling like you're crazy. So let's talk about what that actually means, quiet cracking. And I'm going to read you a few definitions that I found in my research. So, first of all, this is just the AI overview on Google, which when you look at those overviews, it kind of takes information from a bunch of different websites and puts it all together in one. So, the definition from Google's AI is that quiet cracking is the silent, gradual disengagement and loss of well being in an employee that isn't as obvious as burnout or quiet quitting, but leads to decreased performance and an increased desire to leave the job. This phenomenon is caused by feelings of being unappreciated, unsupported, or stuck in a career path with no growth, leading to persistent unhappiness and withdrawal over time. First definition. Doesn't sound great. I feel like it sounds pretty PC. I feel like it uses pretty PC language, honestly. Another definition from CNBC. So, quiet cracking refers to the idea of persistent unhappiness in the workplace, leading to disengagement, poor performance, and a desire to quit. And then my favorite one that I found was in this Forbes article. So I'm going to read it directly to you from the Forbes article, which I'll actually include a link to this Forbes article so that y'all can read through it as well. But here is the definition that Forbes shares. So, unlike quiet quitting, which was framed as a conscious choice or act of resistance, quiet cracking captures the experience of employees who feel stuck in their jobs but can't leave. They push forward despite exhaustion, stress, and even panic attacks because the alternative feels riskier. They're engaged in a form of economic struggle that can be described as workplace financial trauma. It's the invisible thread tying dissatisfaction, stress, and survival mode behavior to the reality of needing a paycheck. And I think this one captures it in the most honest way without trying to pretty it up. So essentially, quiet cracking is extreme long term burnout that you feel like you cannot escape because you feel like you have to keep your job in order to survive and in order to pay your bills because you need the financial help from that job. Not great, right? After reading those definitions, a few things. First of all, I don't know who's in charge of this, whether it's like just society at large, whether it's corporations doing this, but why are we constantly trying to find new terms to kind of water down the bad things that we experience? Like, why are we constantly trying to make bad things seem less bad? I do feel like in this case, quiet cracking, to me, it did kind of give off the impression, as I said at the beginning, that you're kind of just like slowly going insane because of all the pressure around you. I do feel like this term kind of captures that a little bit more than burnout does. But another example of this, of us prettying up a bad thing, is with genocide. So this is relevant in the news if you've been paying attention. I won't mention any specific names, entities, or countries, wink, wink, but with the term genocide, people have been using the term ethnic cleansing instead, which is crazy. Like when you just see the term ethnic cleansing at face value, one, if you're not familiar with what it means, it can be a little confusing. It's not really straightforward about what that means. But two, it's trying to kind of avoid the badness of what that actually is because genocide, to be clear, is, which that's what that is. Ethnic cleansing is genocide. Genocide is the intentional extermination and slaughter of a very specific group of people including men, women, and children. That's what genocide is. Like, let's stop trying to make these things that are bad seem less bad. Let's start with that. Okay, off my soapbox. Second thing in relation to this is that this is happening because, quite frankly, corporations need to do better. I don't know why this started to happen, but corporations are built like their main purpose, their first purpose should not be shareholder profit. Corporations, their first purpose should be about the people they serve, and that includes their employees. And I think that message has been lost in translation. People have been so focused on increasing profits and increasing the bottom line that they completely forgot the purpose of businesses in the first place is to serve their communities and to serve the people around them. And so, like, let's get back to that. If you are an owner of a company or you're involved in a corporation, if you're in the leadership of a corporation, like, do better. Like, do better for the people around you. People are struggling so much because corporations have become really, really greedy. And I stand by that statement. A lot of you might not agree with that, but you don't have to agree with it. But I truly believe that a lot of our problems start there. So, corporations, you need to do better because without treating your employees well, just for the sake of increasing the bottom line, like that's actually a horrible thing to do. And you're going to get that reputation for not treating your employees well, and it's going to backfire eventually. And a good example of this, of corporations putting their bottom line, for example, ahead of their employees. I was reading this Reddit thread where somebody basically told a story about how a guy was about to quit. So in the all teams meeting that they had across the whole company, he asked the questions that everybody is always thinking, but are obviously questions that a lot of people don't feel comfortable asking because they think that there's going to be retaliation. But this guy essentially was asking these questions because he didn't care because he was leaving anyways. And he was kind of like taking one for the team to try to make things better for the people that were staying. And so I was reading through this thread because it was asking essentially like, what are some of your experiences with this too? And one of the examples, actually, I don't know why I remember this one specifically, but it stuck out to me. And this person shared that they did the company announcements, said that they had a really great year, but that they were not going to be able to afford bonuses for the employees that year. And so somebody in the crowd asked, does that mean that the executives aren't going to be getting their bonuses either? And the answer was that the executives were getting their bonuses because it was already in motion before the budget cut off that they were talking about for the rest of the employees. One, situations like that, completely, I call bullshit on that because if you have good profits in a year, there is no reason for you not to give your employees the bonuses that they're promised. And if you can afford to give executives a bonus, then you can most certainly can afford to give the employees that literally the company runs because of all the employees. You can certainly afford to give your employees the bonuses that they have earned. First and foremost, total BS. Also, when they say that they were not able to stop the bonuses because they were already in motion, if this really was a thing where they really needed to focus on budget cuts, they 100% would be able to stop the bonuses that are already in motion. That is a thing that can happen. And that's actually something that happened with me. I've actually shared this story on the podcast before, but at one of my previous companies, I was actually promoted to a new role. When you're promoted, you get a pay increase, but this was right when COVID was hitting. And so the company told me that I wasn't going to get a pay raise at all. So not only did I have more responsibility in this new role, one, the role that I was in before, I was underpaid in that role, which was a step below the role that I was going into. And then not only that, but they were asking me to keep that same pay for this new role, saying that they were not able to afford the raise after all. So that's something that was in motion before that change in finances happened that they completely cut. So when a company says something like that, it's BS. Like, and if not, as an employee, I think y'all should all gather and ask more questions about that because that is literally total BS. So that's just one example. Corporations do better. Like you can do better for employees and better for your communities. The profit you are making is not, if you are a good human being, it is not worth it if it is at the expense of your employees that are making you that profit. And if it is at the expense of the people you serve who are paying their own money for you to have that profit. Let's just keep that in mind. Okay, I went on a few tangents there. I'm really passionate about this topic because I feel like corporate greed like actually is a thing that's gotten way out of hand. And to be clear, this is not how all corporations work. This is not how all businesses work. I think there are really great businesses out there that try to be really equitable to their employees, but there's a lot out there that don't also. So if you are one of those corporations that are doing well for your employees, I commend you. I actually work at one right now that does really, really well by their employees. They really care about their well-being. They care about how they're doing both inside and outside of work. They care about work-life balance, work-life integration. This company that I work at now actually does a really, really good job of looking at you as a human being rather than just a number. So, if more corporations show up like this one does that I work at now, then the world will be a far better place and a far happier place. Okay, so now I'm actually going to come off my soapbox, but quiet cracking, keeping that in mind. Obviously, this is a thing because a lot of us do need to keep our jobs. Most of us out there do not have the luxury, do not have the savings to be able to just quit our job just because we want to. Like a lot of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of Americans don't even have a month of savings saved up, much less 6 to 8 months, a year, however long it takes you to find a job. So, obviously, lots of times in this situation, and this is kind of part of what contributes to it in the first place, you are not able to quit. So, given that that's the reality of the world that we live in right now, I'm going to share some solutions for what we can do to one, help prevent us from reaching the stage and to help us get out of that burnout and that quiet cracking stage as much as we possibly can if we do have to stay in the job that we currently have. So, number one, the first thing that you're going to do if you are approaching the stage or if you are already in the stage of quiet cracking is you are going to start setting boundaries around your work. So, boundaries are really important. And I feel like lots of times in America, at least, that we have this hustle culture. So, we forget that we're allowed to have boundaries with our work, but you 100% are able to have boundaries with your work. And this is something that I'm actually really good at. So, a few examples of what you could do when it comes to your boundaries. One, take your lunch break. Your lunch break is there for a reason. You do not have to work through your lunch break. You do not have to sit at your desk through your lunch break. So I work from home right now. When it's my lunch break time, when I take lunch, I actually take my dogs on a walk. There's a walking trail nearby, so I take them on a walk there. Usually the walk takes about 45 minutes, and then I'll come back and then I'll eat. And if I'm not done eating, then I'll eat and like work at the same time, right? When I was working in the office, I would still take my lunch break every day. And when I was in the office, I was even better about taking my lunch break. I don't know, everybody operates a little bit differently, but when I was in the office during my lunch break, I would take the full amount of time to the minute that I was allowed for my lunch break. I would take my lunch if I brought lunch with me, take a book, go read out on the patio and sit in the sun, or I would go and get lunch somewhere and still sit outside so that I was completely away from the space that I was working in. And I think that's really important too, is to get away from your desk and to just get away from that space so that you can have a little bit of a mental break. But take time away from your desk in the middle of the day. Take that lunch break. It is there for a reason. Take a break from your work. It is not that deep. You do not have to be working straight through 8 hours a day. Go get some sunshine. Go do something with your body where you are not just sitting at your desk, sitting at your work, sitting and staring at your computer screen. Go take the break. It is there for a reason. Take advantage of it. You are not going to fall behind just because you take a little bit of time throughout the day for yourself. And in fact, I would argue that when you do take that time to kind of decompress and focus on yourself and recalibrate, you're actually going to be more productive with the rest of your day than if you had just worked through it, trying to force yourself to get as much done as possible. Another boundary that you can set, and this is something that I practice, I am very strict about the hours that I work. I am one of those people that when I am not working, it is very rare that I am thinking about my work. And even during the work week, I am not going to be working past the designated work hours. So at my job, it starts at 8 a.m. Sometimes I've had leaders that will message me or do something before 8 a.m. I don't answer them until I log on at 8 a.m. because those are my work hours. And if your boss gets mad at that, then I think that's a really good opportunity to be like, my contracted work hours are this. If you need something from me, I'm going to respond to you within those contracted hours. Now, here's the one kicker to this. I'm very efficient with my time during the day. I make sure that I'm getting all the work done that I need to get done during those work hours so that I don't have to worry about anything after work hours. There have been some exceptions for me. So, if you have been here a while, you know that I work in sales. So, sales is one of those jobs where you are a salaried employee. And so sometimes you're doing things that are outside of work hours, right? So, for example, when you're in sales, you go to a lot of conferences or you're traveling to meet with people, whether it's a prospect or a client or a broker or something like that. So, when I'm traveling like that, I am a little bit more lenient about when I answer those messages, especially if I'm at something like a conference, then I kind of consider me being at the conference as working the entire time. Now, if it is late at night, if it's past like maybe like 7, I would say, when I'm at a conference, unless it's something that's like really dire, then I still do not answer my managers until the next day because truly most everything can wait until the next day. In case nobody told you, most everything can wait until the next day. But when I'm at conferences, then I'm a little bit more lenient about that just because I'm at this conference to work however many days I'm there, right? So I consider that all being work time. Another exception is if I do not finish something that I needed to finish, then I do finish that thing if it absolutely has to be done that day. So a really good example of this is when you're in sales, you deal with RFPs, which stands for a request for proposal. So with RFPs, they have a very specific deadline that you have to get it into them by, or else your company, your proposal is not considered at all, and you are just kind of like X'd from that process. So obviously being in sales, that is a very important deadline to meet, right? Because you don't want to miss out on a sale because you were too lazy to get the proposal done in the time that it needed to be done. So if there's something like that that needs to be done, I will work late, I will work extra hours, right, in order to get that done. But again, I work very efficiently with my time during the day to avoid having to do that as much as possible. So, going back to the boundary, it is okay to give yourself certain cutoff times for when you answer emails, when you answer people that you work with. That is okay. And honestly, I think we all should do that because if we all were doing that, then we wouldn't have to worry about getting messages from people in the first place. So, first thing to help avoid or take off some of the pressure of the quiet cracking that we just went over is to start putting boundaries in place when it comes to your work. Okay, done. Check. Next thing that you can do to help with this is to really pay attention for the next week or two and really pay attention to the tasks that you absolutely loathe and to the tasks that you actually kind of enjoy. Because every job that we do, there's going to be parts that we do not like doing more than others. And likely the job that you're in, there's going to be certain parts of that job that you actually really enjoy. So just take note of which of those tasks that you really do not like and which ones that you really do like, because when you do that, you can intentionally use your time to decrease the amount of time that you have to spend doing those tasks that you don't like and increase the amount of time that you're spending in the tasks that you do like. When it comes to the tasks that you don't like, most of the time, those are tasks that we have to do anyways. It's part of our job description, it's part of finding success in the job that you're in. So you have to do them anyways, even if you don't like it. So, what I like to do with those tasks, especially on the days that I'm not feeling it, I do those things first thing right off the bat because I'm not going to be sitting there thinking about it and loathing it all day. That just takes up so much energy to be dreading doing something throughout the day. A lot of people call this eating the frog, but eat the frog first. Do the thing that you like the least first thing in the day. Another reason this helps is because you're probably going to have the most energy that you have at the beginning of the day. So you'll likely get it done faster than if you did it and waited for the end of the day where you're feeling kind of run down and that coffee low is starting to kick in. Another thing that you can do here with these tasks that you don't like, maybe you can see if there's somebody available to help you complete them. And this, to be very clear, is not about passing your work off to one of your coworkers. Do not do that. Be a good coworker, please. Like, actually do your job. But maybe there's a way for you to get help with that specific task. And three, the third thing that you can do, really just understand the tasks that you don't like doing and become really efficient at doing them. You do not have to take all day or drag it out. Just become really efficient doing them so you're spending the least amount of time possible doing them while still doing a good job and getting it done the way that you need to get it done. And then once you do those things, you're able to spend a lot more time either resting because you're becoming more efficient at those different things that you're doing, taking like those little 5 minute breather breaks throughout the day because you have more time to actually do that. And you are creating more time to focus on the things and the parts of your job that you actually really enjoy doing. So by default, you are going to have happier feelings at the end of the day, anyways. Third thing that you can do when it comes to all of that pressure that you're feeling is to remember that it is okay to say no. So if you are feeling really overwhelmed with all the tasks that you have, it is okay to go to your boss and be like, can I have a little help with this area? Or could I get your guidance on XYZ? Or if they're asking you to do an extra project or something like that, it is okay for you to say, hey, you know what? Actually, right now I'm really overwhelmed. I don't really have enough time to do the tasks that I already have. Is it possible to give this project to somebody else and I can handle a different project in the future? It is okay for you to say things like that and to have those conversations with your bosses. I do know that some bosses are more understanding than others. So do what you think is best, but usually those conversations are very well received because, at least in my experience, they've been well received because rather than taking on a task that you actually don't have the capacity for and the task either not getting done appropriately or getting done in a shitty way, you're at the very front communicating with your bosses like, hey, I'm not actually able to do that. So they're able to delegate that task to somebody that is able to do that. And so it's kind of a win-win if you think about it that way, because you're not overwhelming yourself even more than you're already overwhelmed. And the task is getting done probably in a way that would be a little bit better because it's going to someone that has the time and the capacity to actually do it in a better way. Something that I would mention too is that just remember, so maybe this is tip number, what are we on for? Is that it is okay if you are completely miserable in your job, if you have a completely unbearable boss, which that does happen, if you have really mean coworkers, which that does happen too. If you are just in a job that you really, really hate, it is okay for you to look for other jobs and to go elsewhere. And again, like we said at the beginning, that's not always possible to just quit and go find a job when you don't have savings, right? Like, I would not recommend doing that. I would definitely recommend keeping the funds that you have from the job that you currently have. But at the same time, if you really are that miserable in your job, I would start applying for other jobs and do it relentlessly. Do it like your life but depends on it because in a certain way it does because you were not meant to live with all this pressure and all that anxiety. Like if you're one of those people having panic attacks about your work, like that is no bueno, man. And it's no bueno. So do yourself a favor and take the time to apply to other jobs and go out and look at what's out there. And something that my boss has always told me, or one of my first bosses who I kind of consider my mentor when I first started like in the working world after I graduated college, he always told me he encouraged me. He was like, "Hey, when recruiters reach out to you, like always have the conversation with them because things can always change. Like you never know if there's a better deal out there for you, like you should definitely take it because your situation changes, financial things happen with family where it changes. Like you should always keep those options open for yourself to have those other options. And really at the end of the day too, just so you know your market value out there. Like I feel like lots of times people, and I think Gen Z is actually a lot better at this, is lots of times people will stay at a job. And when you're stuck at a job or when you stay at one place, lots of times that actually hinders the growth in your salary because when you're within a company, they have limits on how big of a raise and how big of a bump they can actually give an individual person at a given time. But when they're hiring new from outside, then they have usually much larger limits on those when you're a new recruit. I don't know why it is that way. It's a little bit backwards, honestly, in my opinion, to pay somebody that's brand new to the company more than someone that's been there and understands it. But that's just kind of the reality of how it works. So it is okay to understand your market value and to move on when your value at your current company has fallen behind what your market value actually is. And I'm really grateful for having a boss like that and teaching that to me because it's true. And something that we've seen too is with all of these mass layoffs, like during an acquisition, even, You do not know how stable the company that you're working for truly is, and you don't know if they're going to lay you off. Like that could happen at any time. Somebody could lay you off, or maybe they're cutting certain departments, or maybe they're cutting funding. And if you haven't done the due diligence to talk with those recruiters to understand your market value, then you're going to be a little bit behind the people that have. So it is always okay to look for better for yourself. And a lot of corporations will not like that I'm saying that, but I am here for you. I'm here for the people. I'm not here for the corporations, okay? Like always know your market value, and it is okay if you are completely miserable in your job to go find a different job. And I know that that can feel scary because even though this job that you're currently in sucks. Like I know that it's also familiar. You also understand how it works, but familiarity isn't always what's best for us. So when you push yourself outside your comfort zone, that's when you're really going to find and be able to have a job that you truly enjoy. Hi, Love Bug. I've got a juicy little gift for you. And if you've been feeling off, stuck in your head, or like your vibe just is not vibing lately, then this is for you. I created a free guide called The 3 Secrets to Creating a Magnetic Energy Shift right now. And it's exactly what you need to start shifting your energy instantly. These are the exact tools I use with my private coaching clients when they're ready to stop chasing and start attracting. We're talking powerful, we're talking practical, and yes, of course, we are talking a little bit woo, but in the best possible way. In the guide, you will learn how to clear energetic blocks, activate your most irresistible frequency, shift into receiving mode, and there's even a bonus secret on how to use your body language to instantly boost your confidence and presence. So if you're ready to feel like the version of you who turns heads, magnetizes opportunities, and walks through the world like the main character, then this is your sign. Head to the show notes and click the link to download your free copy. It is quick, it is powerful, and it is going to leave you feeling like, damn, I really am that girl. All right, let's get back into the episode. And on this note too, let's say your quiet cracking or your burnout is from the fact that maybe you really like the company that you work for, but maybe you just really hate the position that you're in. That's also an okay thing to feel. So if you're in that position where you really like the company that you work for, you like your coworkers, you like your bosses, you just do not like the work that you're doing, it is okay to have that conversation with your boss too and be like, hey, I would really like to stay here. Is there another position that you think would be a good fit for me? You can ask them that. You can look at the positions that you have. And if there's something that catches your eye, then start exploring that position as well. Because when you're changing from one position to a different one, then that jump, to make that jump, is going to be a lot easier to make within a company that you're already hired for than it is quitting that company and going to a brand new one. Because in the company that you're currently in, you already have your reputation behind you. So if you've been a good worker, if you've been a good coworker, if you go to all your meetings, if you go above and beyond, if you just have this good reputation about you in your current position, then it is far more likely that they will give you that other position because they already know your work ethic. Like hard skills like that it takes to do a new position like that are easy to learn, right? You're going to learn that on the job in practice, but your company at least already knows that you're a good worker, all the things that I just listed. So they're willing to take the risk on you because you've already proven yourself in another area. When you're jumping to a brand new company, they don't know you from Jack, like if it's between you and a candidate that already has 5 years of experience in that position that you are applying for, more times than not, they are going to go for that person that already has the experience because at least they know that they know how to do the basic functions of that job. Because either way, they're taking a risk on who you are as a person and who you are as a worker when they don't know who you are. So that's a really long-winded answer for this, but if you want to change positions, but you really like the company, start having those conversations with your boss and say like, hey, I would like to explore something else. I think that it's time for me to try something new. Is there a different position at this company that I could apply for internally and try out? Start having those conversations. Obviously, make sure that you're still doing a good job at the job that you currently have because that's going to follow you too. and that's going to leave a mark on whether they actually want to switch you to that new position. But then also ask the other people in your job what they're doing. Ask them if you can shadow them for a day, for example, so you can see and get a real feel for what their task actually looks like. Because you might have this idealized version in your head of what that job and what that position actually entails. And when you shadow someone and you talk to them about it and how they feel about it and what the struggles are and what their successes are, then you get a deeper understanding of if that's actually going to be a good fit for you, you know? But if you are a good employee, most companies do not want to let you go because at the end of the day, it is hard to find good employees. It is hard to find hardworking employees. And onboarding is really expensive for a company. Like, not only just in lost time, but just in training purposes as well, because you're a person that's already established. You know the company values, you know how things operate, you understand how the teams work together. That takes a lot of time for a person that's brand new to actually get really familiar with. So, if they are able to keep an employee that they've already trained and already put all that time and money into, most of the time, companies are going to do what they can to keep you around so they don't have to go through all of that training, right? And in my experience, sometimes if you're like a really good worker too, companies will actually even create new positions for you. And this is actually something that my mom told me when I was younger. She was like, "Well, sometimes companies will just create positions for you." And I was like, "Mom, that's literally a fairy tale." I didn't believe her when she said it until it actually happened to me. So at this same job that I mentioned before, where I had that mentor right out of college. I was in sales, I was a BDR, so that's the person that's doing all the cold calls. And then when I got promoted, my promotion was actually into a role that hadn't existed before. So it was called an ADR, which is an account development rep. So that role was essentially a mix between a sales rep, a full-time sales executive, and a BDR role where I had my own territory. I was doing all the prospecting, I was doing the full sales cycle myself, just like a sales consultant would. But I was getting paired with a more seasoned sales consultant on each of my deals and splitting the commission 50-50 so I could understand and learn the sales process from people that already knew it. So they didn't promote me into a full sales executive role, but they created a kind of like mid role for me because they wanted me to stay because I was a good worker and because I've shown that I perform and that I produce. If you don't believe it, just take me as a real life example. Like, if you are a good employee, companies want to keep you around as much as possible, even if it means you switching to a different department and filling one of those vacancies instead. And at the end of the day, too, if this is something you're struggling with, feeling all the pressure and the overwhelm and being in sales, like, I totally get it, girlfriend. Like, in sales, you constantly have pressure on you to do better, to sell more products, to upsell, to do all of these things, to have more relationships. The pressure can get a lot sometimes because it truly is like in sales, like they want you to do more all the time. Like when you have a win, it's a short-lived win. You send out the win email or whatever it is that you're doing, and then everybody has moved on by the end of the day, and everybody's asking when you're going to close your next deal. So I get it. In sales, it's like that. You're immersed in that all the time. If that's how you're feeling, something that can really go a long way is taking a look at your mindset because, and this is going to sound really basic, but if you have to stay in this job in order to pay your bills, let's say you're doing all these steps that I've mentioned in this podcast, you're applying to new jobs or you're having those conversations with your bosses, you're taking a look at how you spend your time and you're being intentional with how you spend your time, you're taking a look at the tasks you're doing to see if there's any waste there and optimizing the tasks that you're spending your time on. If you're doing all those things, and you're still kind of like unhappy, but this is still a job that you need to have in order to pay your bills, then take a look at your mindset because our mindset, our thoughts control everything around us. I've shared this before. We have something called the reticular activating system. So essentially, what it's saying is that once you notice something, your brain starts to notice more of that thing. So, a really good example of this when it's not with work is when you get a new car. So, my first car that I ever drove was a Mitsubishi Montero. And before that, I had never heard of it. I had never seen it driving down the road. But after I got my car, all of a sudden, I was noticing all of these Mitsubishi Monteros driving down the road that were, and a lot of them were even the same color as my car. I was like, what the heck? Is this just like a trending car right now? But no, probably not. It was not a trending car. What that is our reticular activating system at work because what was happening before is that those Mitsubishi Monteros were still still there. They were still on the road, but my brain was blocking them out because it didn't look at those cars as necessary information to actually process. But as soon as I got a Mitsubishi Montero myself, all of a sudden, this car has importance to me, right? So it has importance to my brain. So all of a sudden, my brain is noticing it more and actually processing that information more. So it's just come front and center. There's not more or less Mitsubishi Monteros on the road. It's just that your brain is actually processing them now. So I share that because this is important when it comes to our mindset too with our job. If you are stuck in a negative mindset with the position that you have, you're going to be focusing on all the negative things that are happening. And even if something positive happens, your brain is going to kind of find a way to turn it into a negative thing because it is reinforcing the beliefs that you have. So if you're able to change your mindset and focus on some of the more positive aspects or focus on being grateful for how this job helps you, start focusing on those things, then your brain is automatically going to start looking for other things, other positive things to prove yourself right. Because that's what our brains want to do. They want to prove us right, right? So when you start looking at positive things, saying like, I'm so grateful that I was able to pay my rent this month. I'm so grateful that I had the extra cash to go and get margaritas with my girlfriends this weekend. I am so grateful that I was able to cover my dog's vet bill because of the pet insurance I get through my job. I am so grateful that I got to take PTO the other day. So I got to see my sister and my nieces and nephews. Like, all of those little things, if you can just start pointing those out to yourself, you are going to start finding other things about your job that you like. And I think the danger, quote unquote, that we feel like is going to happen here is that if we're in a position that we hate and then we start to appreciate it, we're going to get stuck in there even longer. This is not true. Like, it is okay to be appreciative for what you have and still want better. In fact, that I truly believe that that's the only real way to go about life because otherwise you're going to be miserable all the time. Like, be appreciative for what you have while at the same time you are striving for better, and that's okay. And honestly, when you are looking at more positive things in your life, more positive things are going to show up not just in your work, but outside of your life too, because you're looking at all these different things to be grateful for. All these other different things to be grateful for are going to start coming in. And then I bet that that opportunity for a new job is going to come in a lot quicker than if you were in a negative mindset, because negative attracts negative, positive attracts positive. That's just how it works. That's how energy works. So start focusing on better things, start focusing on more positive things, and just watch the more positive opportunities come your way there too. So that's all I got for you this week. If you have any questions about this, I'm happy to talk about it. If you are kind of in the midst of wanting to change careers, this is something that I can help with too. This is something I've done myself. I've negotiated salaries. I've done all of that. So if you have any questions about it, feel free to DM me, feel free to contact me on my website, and feel free to book a free breakthrough session if this is something that you want to dive deeper into and you really want to start looking at your patterns and your mindsets to really create a better life for yourself, not just in your work life, but in all areas of your life. So that's it. Love you guys. I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you liked what you heard, then go ahead and subscribe so you get updates with us every week. You can also follow us on Instagram at KRC Coaching. If you're interested in working one-on-one, then go ahead and visit our website, krccoaching.com, to book your first 30-minute session for free. All right, thanks so much, you guys. Love you. Bye.